Hey guys, welcome back to another Mater and Tater video on a wet and cold Arkansas morning. I believe winter is slowly making its way into the state. Trees are starting to turn and lose leaves. We had a subscriber make a comment on one of our videos asking the question, why do y'all have so many bikes when you can only ride one at a time? And that's a legit question. So after responding to his comment, I thought, well, let me just make a quick video about it. He also mentioned in his comment that he was thinking about getting into mountain biking, but he felt like he was, I guess, too old at this time in his life, and that, you know, he didn't think he could do all these jumps and drops and all that stuff that you see on YouTube. And just like I told him, I said, what you see on YouTube is just a small fraction of the mountain bike scene in general, okay? I thought I'd do a quick video on the bikes that we have, why we have them. Thought I'd give a little information to the gentleman that asked the question, as well as anybody who's watching this who might be interested in getting into mountain biking. I thought I would add a little bit more information on some of the things that you might run into out there if you're going out to look to buy a new bike or a used bike. Because not all mountain bikes are created equal. It's a matter of, like I tell everybody, it's a matter of getting the right tool for the right job. And another thing I tell people is get the bike that you like, the bike that you can afford, and the bike you like. That's the bike that's made for you, okay? Don't let people tell you, oh, you need this bike because it can go do this and this and this. You need to go out, test ride some bikes, rent some from a bike shop, borrow some from a friend. Just try out different ones and see what you like and go with that, because you're not going to be happy with it. It's kind of like buying a car, you know. You don't just say, your buddy says, oh, you need to buy this car right here, and then you go out and buy it. No, you're going to go out and test drive multiple cars, see what you like and what you can afford. And that's the same way with the bike. And I think it's even more important on a bike because the bike has got to fit you, okay? And not all bikes are created the same. So, but anyways, let me quit blabbing here and get into the bikes. And it's coming down again. All right, so this is our fleet of bikes. There's 7 bikes in here total. Each one has a specific job, I guess you might say. So this bike right here is a Live Peak full suspension cross-country mountain bike. And this is my wife's primary mountain bike. This bike is a full suspension. For those of you that don't know this, not for those of you who are already mountain biking, you'll already know this. This is a full suspension because it has a suspension in the front and this suspension in the rear. A full suspension is going to give you a plusher ride than a hardtail, which we'll get into that here in just a minute. This bike has what is called 27.5-inch wheels. Now these other 2 mountain bikes, those are 29-inch wheels. Each one has its pros and cons, which I'll get into that here in a little bit too. So the purple bike here is my wife's primary road bike, and it is a Live Avail road bike. It's basically a tour bike, a bike that you would ride for long distances. It's not really meant for racing, but I guess you could race with it if you wanted to. The next bike over is my hardtail mountain bike. And this is a Giant XTC Advanced. And the reason it's called a hardtail because it does have suspension here in the front, as you can see, but there is no suspension back here in the rear. So that's why it's called a hardtail, and it's not going to give you near a plush ride as what that full suspension there will be. And this is also considered a cross-country bike. The main reason for this bike is it's kind of our do-it-all bike, or my do-it-all bike, I guess. If I was going to do, I used to do a lot of cross-country racing, and every now and then I'll go back and do a race. And when I do, I'm usually on this bike here because it's a real good racing bike because it's lightweight, very efficient pedaling, which I'll get into that here in a bit, compared to a full suspension bike. It's also the bike that we use that if we're waiting on parts for her mountain bike or waiting on a part for my mountain bike and we want to go mountain bike riding, it's our backup mountain bike. Also, if I want to go do any bike packing where you go out for multiple days on the bike and put bags on your bike, this is the bike I take to do that. And if we do any gravel riding where we're just riding dirt roads, old forest roads or logging roads, this is the bike I'll take to do that. So that's a multi-purpose bike right there, and that's the purpose for it. This orange and black one here, let's get you over here so you can see it better. This is my primary road bike, and it is a giant Defy, and just like my wife's road bike, it is a tour bike. It's not really meant for racing. And then the last but not least over here, let's get the bag off of it. This is my primary mountain bike. This is the one you'll usually see me on when I'm just going out to have fun and mess around. This is a Fazari Cascade Peak, full suspension, all mountain bike. Now if you remember, I said that was a cross-country bike, and my wife's bike is a cross-country bike. This is a all mountain bike. All mountain bike. And it all has to do with the geometry and the angle of the fork up front. And real quick, I'll just get into the difference between an all mountain and a cross-country bike. Basically, it's just the geometry of the bike, the length, but one of the big things is what, is the angle of this front fork. This front fork is what we call a slacker angle than either of those cross-country bikes, which have a stiffer angle. So on those cross-country bikes, that front wheel is pushed more up underneath the bike, whereas on this all-mountain bike, that front wheel is kind of pushed out in front of the bike. And that just allows you to take descents, rough descents, faster than what either one of those could do. But as always, there's pros and cons. To get something, you got to give something up. So basically, because of the geometry of this bike, it's not as good of a climber as what that bike will be or that bike would be. And so let's real quick, starting to come down now, guys. Let's real quick get into the 29-inch wheels versus the 27 5-inch wheels. 29-inch wheels are going to give you a plusher ride. They're going to allow you to go over obstacles easier. They're also going to have better rolling momentum to them. Once you get them up and going, they're going to be easier to keep that momentum going as opposed to the 27.5. And they're also going to give you a bigger contact patch, and that is the area where it contacts the ground, which helps in control. The drawback to these 29-inch wheels, they're going to take more effort to get them going, and they're not as, what's the word I want to say, playful as what the 27.5s are. So 27.5s going to be more playful, more agile. There we go. There's the word I'm looking for. 27.5 is going to be more agile than the 29-inch. The 27.5 is going to be easier to get it rolling and moving down the trail. That's the big difference between 29 and 27.5. I'll throw up some information here in a bit on the screen. It's some information I put together on the different kind of bikes, mountain bikes you'll run into. And you can just pause the video and kind of read that. That way, we kind of keep this video short. But that's these 5 bikes that we have here, and that's why we have these 5 bikes. These 2 bikes back here in the corner we use quite a bit, just because they're convenient and for the sake of time. You know, by the time you get off work, you can be up and riding in about 10 to 15 minutes. Where, so if we took one of the mountain bikes out, you know, we got to get our gear all together, got to get the bikes loaded, get them up to the trail, ride them back, or drive back. And you just don't get as much riding time in. Admittedly, it is funner than this. If you just want to get a ride in, this is what we use quite a bit during the weekdays. This is my trainer bike, and it is a Trek Alpha 2.1. And it's connected to a Wahoo Kicker Smart Trainer. Direct drive. You see there's no rear wheel here. This is my wife's trainer bike. It is a Giant OCR 3. I think this is the oldest bike we got. I think we bought this in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is an 09. So these are both pretty old bikes. And you can see, I mean, they work just fine. So you don't need a fancy bike or nothing for putting on a trainer. Just needs to be in working condition. If I wasn't really looking just to get outside and ride, but just looking for fitness, then I think this trainer setup would be the way to go. All you need to do, get you a smart trainer. Don't get a dumb trainer. You will regret that choice if you do. But you need to get a smart trainer. I don't think they make these kicker snaps anymore. I think everything, this is what they call an on-wheel trainer. That is a direct drive trainer. That's on wheel. You'll notice it because it still has the rear wheel on the bike. And you just bump that thing up against the rear wheel, and that's what turns the trainer. Whereas over on a direct drive, you have to take that rear wheel off and connect it directly to the trainer. Like I said, I don't think they make those no more. They might, I don't know. But if I was gonna do this, I'd get a smart trainer. But I think you can get these now for about like 800 bucks or so. Get you, it doesn't have to be a new bike, just a good working bike. And it can be a mountain bike or a road bike, or pretty much probably whatever kind of bike you can get onto that cog. And then what we do is we use a program, computer program called Zwift. Maybe you can see that sticker, ZWIFT. I'm not going to get into Zwift because you can do a search on YouTube, because there are hundreds of videos out there on Zwift. But that's what we use because it keeps us engaged. You know, it keeps us wanting to keep riding on a trainer. You know, after an hour, you're not doing this, oh, I can't stand this no more. And you can race on Zwift. They have challenges, they have group rides, they have all kinds of things. But if you think it's something you might be interested in, just do a YouTube search on Zwift, and you'll find out what all it's about. We chose to use computers and TV screens. You don't have to do it this way. You can use a tablet, and you can even use your telephone if you want to. This is just the way we chose to do it. But yeah, if you were just looking for fitness, not really caring about getting outdoors, this would be the route. This would probably be about the cheapest route. $800 for a good smart trainer. I don't know, a few hundred, $200-300 for a used mountain bike or road bike that fits you. If you wanted to go the computer route, you know, you don't need nothing super fancy. I don't remember what the specs are for Zwift. You can look that up. That's not that hard to find. On these two computers, they're older computers. I mean, you can tell that Dell's pretty old. That one's kind of old. And then just go out and buy you, I think these are like 43-inch television screens. And they work. It works great. Get you a good fan. And you should be good to go, man. But like I said, if I was just wanting to get into fitness, that would probably be the route I would go. And I didn't care about getting outdoors. One other thing I did want to touch on these bikes real quick. If you're looking for a bike that you could kind of use like riding on the road and riding dirt roads, riding dirt trails, paved trails, just have one bike that kind of does it all, my suggestion would be a hardtail bike. Okay, a hardtail is going to be cheaper than a full suspension bike, number one. It's not going to have near the maintenance involved on it because you don't have that rear suspension to deal with. It's going to be lighter because you don't have that extra rear suspension. And I mean, the main thing is it's just going to be a good all-arounder for less money. So if I was looking just for one bike to kind of do it all type thing, that hardtail would be the way I'd go. I'm about to wrap this up out here in the garage, but just one more thing I want to mention that you'll probably run into out there is the type of material that the frames are made out of. This is aluminum. That's carbon fiber. That's carbon fiber. That purple one over there is carbon fiber. And then the white one is aluminum. Those two back there are aluminum. There is some differences there. I'll put them up on the screen. Like I said, you can pause the video, kind of read through the information there, because I'm not going to go through all of that because I feel like it'll make this video way too long. This first table is just a comparison of a hardtail versus the full suspension. This next one is just a comparison of the different type of mountain bikes you're probably going to run into out there. You'll have the cross-country bike. You'll have down country. You don't really see those as much as you used to. Then you have the all-mountain or the trail bike, the enduro bike, the downhill bike, and the free ride bike. And there are a few other types that you'll probably run into out there as well. Just a little table I put together talking about the difference between the material of what the frame is made out of. And now's a comparison of the 29-inch wheel to the 27.5-inch wheel. And that pretty much wraps up the information. I think that's going to do it, guys. I hope this was helpful to the gentleman that wrote the comment, or to anybody who might be thinking about getting into biking in general or mountain biking. But thanks for joining me today on this rainy, wet day. And I hope to see you on the next one. And as always, thank you guys for watching.